You know, a trip to space, as you might imagine, is a phenomenal, life-changing event. But it reaches that pinnacle life experience in ways that were frankly unexpected. I think it would be reasonable to expect that the two of the most exciting and memorable parts of a trip to space are launch and re-entry. And in fact, of course, they are. But if you watch a launch on television, or even in person from the outside, it's extraordinarily loud. There's lots of vibration, and it seems to have a sense of violence, you know, associated with it. What's interesting is that on the inside of that rocket, as you're going through the instructions, you're coming down to the launch command, and you're on the page that ends in launch. And you get to the line where the engines come online and start to fire. But you don't hear anything. You don't feel any vibration. So you know on the outside, it's really noisy and full of vibration. But on the inside, it's almost perfectly silent, almost perfectly smooth. And when the vehicle begins to rise, it's not like you drop the clutch at a green light in a sports car. It just barely begins to lift. And then it slowly picks up speed as you get pressed into your seat. And over minutes, it takes 2 or 3 minutes to build up to the full G-forces, which is only about 3.5 Gs, which is, you know, not much different than on a roller coaster. And then it only takes 8.5 minutes to burn all of the fuel in the entire rocket. So 8.5 minutes after launch, the engine's cut off, and you're floating in 0 G in space. And so it's a really beautiful experience, more like a confident ballet move lifting you faster to the sky than a violent launch like you perceive from the outside. And the same thing's true for re-entry. As soon as you have contact with the atmosphere, you create a plasma hotter than the surface of the sun, which begins to melt the vehicle around you. But it's perfectly smooth, perfectly silent, very elegant and beautiful. But probably the most life-changing part about a trip to space is just looking back at the Earth for days and days and days. You know, it's like a fire hose of truth of the reality in which we live that is just pouring into your mind while you look out the window. So it's really spectacular.
What's the feeling?
Well, as you look out the window, what's interesting is, you know, of course the view is beautiful, but it's not one image, one view is not life-changing. But you're going around the world at 17,000 miles an hour. You go all the way around the world every 90 minutes. You see a sunrise or a sunset every 45 minutes. You cross an entire continent in 10 minutes. You perceive all kinds of things about the Earth in kind of rapid succession at a level of understanding that you never had in classrooms. Things like weather, things like the results of tectonic plate movement, because you can kind of see the cracks, you know, through, not moving, but you see the evidence left behind from tectonic plate movement. You see erosion by water and erosion by wind. You see that the impact of humanity is everywhere. Every desert has roads in it. Every desert has farms in it. Every mountain range has roads in it and dams in it. Every swampy area, including the Amazon, has roads and cities all through it. You see the fires burning throughout the Amazon and all through parts of the fertile belt of Africa from all the people clear-cutting to do subsistence farming. You see all these things about both the natural and human impact aspects of the world. And then for me, there was a moment where I saw, only after a few days, Texas, where I grew up, and the cities that I know intimately, because I, in college days, had driven them many times. And you can see the whole planet. And suddenly, you have this revelation of, I now know the true scale of the Earth by direct observation. By extrapolation of, I know this area really well, and now I can see the totality. And like a game, and now suddenly the Earth becomes finite and small. And it was a very physical reaction to that epiphany, that moment where you kind of go, I now really understand the Earth in a way that I never did before.